Hi, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Good to see all your faces. Thank you, Lisa. She's recording. Right when you go to talk, it says recording in progress. All right. Well, happy Monday, everybody. It's 12:30, so we'll get started. I know that we were going to be in person, but as you heard in some of the conversation, where it's safer to have everybody virtually, so we'll continue on and keep you updated as things progress or decline, hopefully decline. We'll kick off, and Lisa, if you will do roll call for us, that'd be great.
Thank you. District 1?
District 1 here.
District 2? District 3?
Here.
District 4? District 5? Banning?
Here.
Beaumont?
Here.
Calimesa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Corona?
Here.
Eastvale?
Here.
Hemet?
Here.
Parupa Valley?
Here.
Lake Elsinore?
Here.
Menifee?
Here.
Moreno Valley?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
Norco?
Here.
Paris?
Here.
Riverside?
Here.
San Jacinto?
Here.
Temecula?
Marianne here.
Wildemar?
And Benoit here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
All right. Thank you so much.
Lisa, Karen Spiegel, District 2.
Thank you.
If we're going to go to our Pledge of Allegiance, and Tony, Ms. Corona, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this afternoon?
No problem. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We're going to move right along. That's going to take us to public comments. Lisa, do we have any public comments?
I did have Mike Laura who wished to address.
All right. I skipped over housekeeping. I think we're all pretty familiar. I'll just say that if you'd like to speak, raise your hand, unmute yourself. For those on the phone, dial *9. Otherwise, you guys know the drill. We're not new here. And we will start with public comments.
Shall I go?
Mike?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, members of the board, Mike Laura, Mayor of the City of Beaumont. This afternoon, I just wanted to make a public comment in regards to the prepayment fee and the MSHCP ordinance. Just by way of background, I'm a former county employee with over 30 years of experience in reading fee ordinances and having the responsibility of collecting various developer impact fees for the county. What I'd like to do is just to encourage the RCA board to take advantage of the ordinance, more specifically section 2 under administrative responsibilities, and have the RCA board adopt a policy to allow the cities to authorize RCA to calculate and collect the fees directly from property owners. I think it's important that they move quickly on this. And the reason I would encourage them to do so is to try to beat, if possible, the next fee increase. Because what I've seen, or a number of cities have developed their own process on what we call prepayment, or what RCA is allowing, which is a prepayment. Each city is developing their own process. So there is not going to be a consistency in the processes, at least to my knowledge. And again, this is based on my understanding and nobody else's. And the concern that I have is that RCA is has not signed off on any of these prepayment developers, agreements. So you really don't have an understanding of what was allowed, the number of units, how much money was collected, at least at this point, which brings me to another concern, or another concern, which is according to the implementation manual and the ordinance, fees need to be remitted every month or monthly. At the latest, they need to be remitted every 90 days. So that would be those fees that are pre-collected, which could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars that you really won't have anything to tie to it because you've got no really agreement in-house. So I'm just encouraging you to take that action. The other thing I would like to mention is in the implementation manual, it talks about RCA has the final determination regarding the appropriate methodology to calculate fees based on the information provided. Yet they have done no calculation on any of the prepayments to my knowledge. The reason that that's concerning is because according to the implementation manual in chapter 3, table 3.1, the residential tract development fees are based on two things that I can see. One is the density and the other is the unit. And once you bring in the unit or you require the unit, typically that's tied to a permit fee or building permit. Building permit is good to tie it to because you've got an application date, an issuance date, a final date, and more importantly, which is also referenced in the manual, an expiration date. So anytime and that's important because anytime a permit expires, it allows the jurisdiction to collect the newer or higher fee that's in place at the time of the payment. When you do a prepayment that's based on a tract lot, there is no expiration for that. So ultimately, RCA could be trying to calculate fees or collect fees on payments that were made 5 years, 6 years out, and you won't have a permit or anything really to tie it to other than a tract and a lot, which may be difficult when it comes to an audit.
That's time.
Okay. I thank you so much for your time. I am willing to help and assist in creating any type of a collection process at all. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. My guys, this is not on our agenda to discuss, just give you a little bit of clarity as far as what we can do to follow up. We will meet as an executive committee and this can be reported up as well as staff can reach out to you. I know that we're working on forming a group of agency members that can work to discuss these improvements and we can circle back with you and get you all up to speed as far as what's been done. So I'm sure staff is nodding and saying yes. So we will get you some more information, but we appreciate your comments today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, more than happy to help in any way that I can.
Appreciate that very much. Okay. Thank you. Lisa, do we have any other public comments?
None that I'm aware of, and I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on. I don't believe there's any additions or revisions, so that is going to take us to closed session, and I will turn it over to legal counsel.
Sorry, it took a moment to unmute. Yes, we have 5 closed sessions to discuss. These are acquisition of the properties that are shown on the agenda. So now we will now be going into closed session.
Please stand by.
Board Member Ruiz, are you still in the main room?
Yep, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'll get you moved over. Sorry.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hi, this is Jeff Cervantes from Calamasa. Can you also get me moved over, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Almost there, guys. I know it's dead silent. Sorry. We'll be all together and reporting out in just a second.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Mr. Devon, will you be reporting out for us?
Yes, Madam Chair, there is no reportable action.
All of that for that. Fantastic. we should have had Philip report it out in his wonderful voice. Please stand by. All right, that will move us to our item number 7 on our agenda, which is our consent calendar. We have I already see a hand up. Councilmember Sobek, right before I turn it over to you, if there, we have 1, 2, 3, 6 items on our consent calendar, so I will bring it out for discussion, comments, questions, or concerns, or consideration. Lisa?
Me, Lisa, or the other Lisa?
You, Lisa, with your hand up.
Okay, I just would like to pull 7.E.
All right, we will pull 7B. Are you?
E is in Edward.
E is in Edward. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you. E is in Edward. And are you supporting any motion or consideration, or just want to pull that item?
I would be happy to make a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second that, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a first by Menifee, a second by Marietta. Noting 7E is pulled. It'll be a remainder of the rest. Would you like a staff report?
I would. This is a new item, and I think it'd be great. And then I have a few questions just so I can understand it a little more.
Okay, fantastic. Aaron, will you be taking this, or another member of the team taking it?
This will be Hector Casillas, please.
Hector, you're up.
Hi. Hector, could you go ahead and sort of explain what this report is and what it's intended to do?
Oh, yes. This report is the first month that we are reporting out the status of the acquisitions that my department in right-of-way is handling. And it kind of gives, we're supposed to give all the board members an idea as to how many acquisitions and active projects we're managing with the current staff that we have, and also to categorize all of these into the different types of acquisitions that we handle between grant properties, the development HONs, the non-development HONs, and the willing seller transactions. And when we were looking at this, we already maintained a main status report internally, and we pretty much use that to guide us here and to develop this for the board without breaking any confidentiality rules, and with our attorney, obviously, to provide as much data as we could. And also from the input that was received by all of you at the executive committee in order to develop it. And when we did this for the period ending in July, we came up with that we had 46 active projects going on, and they varied between the different types of acquisitions. And we also wanted to highlight that since RCTC took over as managing agency, we have closed on the 11 escrows, all again within various types of acquisitions. And as we moved on, we wanted to get more feedback so we can change the status report, update it in any way that you may want in terms of what you want to see. And we can have a good report going forward on a monthly basis for the board.
Thank you, Hector. So looking at this report, and looking at the different areas, I do see that there's names of sellers are representatives on some and some there's not. Can you explain why that is?
Yes. So we wanted to be very clear that these individuals that are listed as owner representatives are just that. They are not the actual property owners of the parcel that we're trying to acquire. They are just individuals who were hired by the actual property owner to work on their behalf. So if an owner representative applied on that specific acquisition, then we listed it. Those that do not have one and have an NA, that means that they don't have an owner representative and they're representing themselves on that acquisition.
Okay, thank you. That was one question I had. Thank you. And then are these in order of date received in each of them, each of the areas, or how does that work?
No, they're not in any order in particular. So when we took over as managing agency, there was a 30+ page status report. And when we took over, we developed into a different type of status report. And we saved all these into different categories. Kind of what you see here, just a much larger spreadsheet. And when we were asked to provide this to the board, we pretty much just highlighted the sections that needed to be provided. And this is what resulted from that. Going forward though, like for the next month that I just prepared this for, I added the new ones at the bottom, but again, the feedback is appreciated if you do need me to make it in a specific order.
No, well, what I was kind of wondering is, you've got 4 different categories, and do they ever get moved around? Is there a priority, or is who's ever comes in first, are they first in line for acquisition from RCA, if that's the case? I just was trying to understand this.
Yeah, so in terms of priority, the one that I could modify to list better would probably be the one that's labeled as non-development Hans, because those are based on the order you came in, when you came in. So those I could place in a certain order that would give you the top one. That's the first one we can move forward with now, and then give the board an idea there. However, on the other ones, they might be changing, like the development Hans. Yes, 1 month I can give you that order, but then that priority can change slightly because some of these close of escrow periods are also dependent on the purchase price. So that's when we get the 1, 2, 3, or 4 year escrows.
Okay, so yeah, I think that would be great if you can, just so we can kind of keep an eye on that. I think that would be helpful. So I think that's all the questions I have at this time. It's new, and it looks, I like the colors. You're able to distinguish it, the properties. So thank you for doing this. And I just thank you for letting me pull it and just ask a few questions. So I just move that we approve 7E.
I second, City of Benton.
Hi, Chair Johnson, you're muted.
Thank you. We have 2 actual roll call items. We have the balance of the consent calendar and then 7E. I'm not sure if we can combine them now that we've had a staff presentation, or if we want to take them separate because of the roster of members on the board. I'll let you give us guidance on that, but we have a first and a second for the 7E as well. How would you guys like to handle that?
From a legal perspective, I'll just offer that you may combine them at the chairman's choice.
All right, well, for sake of time and everybody's time, let's combine them and move forward.
Thank you. District 1?
District 1, yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Banning?
Yes.
Beaumont?
Yes.
Calamasa?
Yes.
Green Lake?
Aye.
Corona?
Yes.
Eastville?
Yes.
Hemet?
Yes.
Rupa Valley?
Yes.
Lake Elsinore?
Yes.
Menifee?
Yes.
Menifee?
Yes.
Thank you. Renovelli?
Yes.
Marietta?
Yes.
Norco?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Riverside?
Yes.
San Jacinto?
Yes.
Temecula?
Yes.
Wildemar?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar, including 7E, does pass.
All right, thank you. Takes us to agenda item number 8, our fee reduction for home additions, and I believe Aaron will be presenting today.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the board. So this item is a proposal to reduce the MSHCP fee for homeowners who are adding square footage to their home through a renovation or a remodel. This proposal is actually being brought forward to provide a solution to a problem that member agencies identified with the new MSHCP ordinance that results in higher fees charged to local residents. Next slide, please. I want to start with a quick refresher. This board approved the 2020 Nexus study at the end of last year. And one of the board's primary objectives in approving the Nexus study was to put the MSHCP on a sustainable and stable financial footing. This was the first Nexus study that RCA had completed since its inception in 2004. And this board took a significant leadership effort to complete it. So along with the Nexus study, the board also adopted
I didn't know what you were talking. I had no idea.
model fee ordinance and resolution
I
to
thought I should
implement the
go.
Nexus study as the
You didn't.
MSHCP required.
Aaron, I'm sorry. I'm not sure who it is, but can you guys just check to make sure you're muted? We're getting a little bit of background. Couldn't quite hear you, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Problem? No problem.
Okay, I think we should be all muted now.
Okay. All right. So where I left off is just along with the Nexus study, there was also a model resolution and fee ordinance that this board adopted that went then to all of your jurisdictions for adoption there, because the fee ordinance and the resolution is the legal mechanism by which your city or the county imposes and collects the fee. So the third thing that the board adopted then was something new, hadn't been done before. And it's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. It's the MSHCP Mitigation Fee Implementation Manual. This is an administrative document that provides guidance to the city and county staff on how to apply the fee to different types of projects that come across the counter. The manual is intended to be a document that can adapt to circumstances exactly like what we're dealing with today. Because we know that no public policy is perfect in its first form, and there's always new considerations that come up once implementation begins. So simply put, this is a tool that the board can use to make adjustments so the Nexus study can be implemented better. And today we're recommending we do that. Next slide, please. So here's the problem. Earlier this year, City of Norco planning staff and city management came to us and they raised a concern as they read the language in the Nexus study and in the fee ordinance that someone just adding a few square feet to their home would actually trigger a full per unit MSHCP fee, which in a low density community like Norco could be close to $3,000. This is the same fee that a developer would pay who's building an entire new house. So the city requested that the RCA take action to create a more equitable fee structure for home remodels. So RCA staff agreed that something should be done immediately, as it was not our intent to charge fees that high to smaller remodels of homes. So rather, it was our intent with the 2020 ordinance to correct a past practice with the original MSHCP fee, where all additions and renovations, no matter how many square feet they added, were practically exempt from the fee. And you may be asking, why do we even charge fees to remodels? And the answer is this: the Nexus study must be compliant with the California Mitigation Fee Act, and the Nexus study addresses regional impacts of new development on habitat. So any development conceivably creates increased impact on the region, and the fee needs to be proportional to that impact. So we need to have some sort of fee. And so the RCA adopted a model ordinance that tried to correct this sort of broad exemption that was being granted to renovations, no matter how large they were. But it didn't really have a proportional mechanism in it, and that's what we're proposing to add today. Next slide. So here's the solution we propose after consulting with the city that brought it forward, the city of Norco. We also heard from the cities of Menifee and Corona about this concern. And so what we're proposing today is simply to amend the implementation manual which I spoke about earlier and we heard about in public comment on a different topic. But what we're proposing to do is amend the manual to treat additions and renovations to a house just like an accessory dwelling unit, or an ADU, as they're often called. And that fee calculation is actually rooted in state government code. So we're actually being consistent with the formula that already exists. So for a home on a property that's not previously paid the MSHCP fee because it was built or received its permit prior to the MSHCP, so that's 2004 or earlier, or if the renovation adds 749 square feet or less, there would be no fee on such an addition to a house. If the addition or renovation adds 750 square feet or above, the fee would be prorated based on the ratio of the square footage of the new addition to the house to the home. The second piece of the recommendation we have today is making this amendment effective as of July 1st, 2021. So this means that a homeowner who paid a whole unit fee for their project between July 1 and today could be eligible for a partial or full refund. I want to be clear that this proposed amendment does not increase fees on any homeowner compared to the current RCA board approved policy. Instead, this proposed amendment will reduce fees to many homeowners compared to current policy. Next slide, please. Just want to tick through our rationale for why we think this is the best solution. Number one, it benefits the homeowner financially. It results in financial savings compared to what is current policy. It still maintains financial sustainability of the MSHCP for the fact that it will result in a proportional fee on those larger projects that were previously exempt. There is no increase in fees from what was adopted in the 2020 Nexus study, and we think it's more equitable on the whole. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some simplicity in it in that we're simply using a formula that's already used for accessory dwelling units. It's a mouthful. And we can implement it immediately once the board acts. We don't need to go through the process of having every jurisdiction amend its ordinance and its resolution again. And finally, this is something that our member agency requested. And one of the board's priorities this year was to be more responsive and communicate with our member agencies. And we wanted to demonstrate that with this item. All right, so I want to conclude, next slide, please, with just an example of how this would play out in real life. So let's assume that you have a 2,000 square foot home. You're in a low density neighborhood, which by our definition, it's less than 8 units per acre. There's no MSHCP fee that's ever been paid on this house before. And the application for the permit comes in today. So on this 2,000 square foot home, if a homeowner is going to add 200 square feet, if we made no change, the status quo today, that homeowner would pay an MSHCP fee of $2,935 for that 200 square foot addition. They're only adding 10% to their house. If this policy is adopted, because that 200 square feet is less than 750, they'd be exempt. They'd pay no fee. So now let's go to the other end of the spectrum with a larger addition to a 2,000 square foot house. Let's say we were going to add 1,000 square feet. That's adding 50% to the size of the house. That's a pretty considerable addition. So under today's policy, the fee would be the same, $2,935, as if you were adding just 200 square feet. But with the proposal that we're putting forward today, if we update the manual, that fee is prorated. Since it's 50% the size of the existing home, the fee is 50% of the full per unit fee. And so the fee would be $1,467.50. These are just two illustrative examples. I tried to make it easy with big round numbers to see what the before and the after effect is of the proposed change. So now that I've run through that, we'll go to the almost final slide here and just summarize what the staff recommendations are. This was heard by the executive committee and they wanted to forward this to the board for full consideration. The recommendation is to approve the updated MSHCP mitigation fee implementation manual. There's a red line copy of the manual in your agenda, as well as a clean copy of what it would look like after the change is made. And then approve that the policy is retroactive and in effect as of July 1st, 2021, so that if someone has already paid the full per unit fee, And under the new policy, they'd be eligible for a potential refund. Next slide, please. And I'd be happy to take questions and look forward to your discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. I know we have some questions. Marietta, I think I see your hand.
Questions and comments. I guess the first question is, Aaron, with respect to a structure that would be decimated from fire or earthquake that would be knocked down, would that fee be exempt, or would they be charged for that fee should they have to rebuild the structure, and would it be the full amount?
That's a great question. Actually, Philip, could you pull the PowerPoint back up again, please? And I actually want you to go to the very last slide, please, Philip. I knew this question might come up, Mr. Ingram. So I include a screenshot of the ordinance that speaks to this. If you look at, this is section 9 of the model ordinance that RCA adopted. If you look at the first paragraph, paragraph A, reconstruction improvements that were damaged or destroyed by fire or other natural causes, provided the reconstruction improvements do not result in additional usable square footage, that's exempt from the fee. Now, if they were to build a larger home than what they had originally, then we would basically use the same methodology here for that additional square footage. But if they were, if they have 2,000 square feet, it burned down or was destroyed, and they built 2,000 square feet again, there's no fee.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. I'll wait for the other questions, Madam Chair, and then I'll make my comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Lisa, can you help me with any other questions if I don't see hands?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
Okay, well, we're turning it back to you, Jonathan, for your comments then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think most already know how I've felt about this. One, I'm not a fan of retroactively charging fees on an existing property that existed prior to the inception of the MSHDP. My concern is, and this is a developer speaking as well as an elected on this board, is that when we go in and we do a track map on a property, those properties are assessed based on the square footage of the lot and or acreage of the development, and those off-site improvements and on-site improvements have already been charged. So what we're doing is essentially, in my opinion, is double dipping, because we're coming back in and saying, oh, you're going to do an addition that would be in excess of, we're going to charge. Well, they're not expanding their footprint in any way. So I'm lost at the thought process of this, that we're going, well, they're adding on to their home, therefore they're impacting the MSHCP. If they're not adding to their lot size, then I'm just perplexed that we're even considering this, and I'm absolutely not for this. From an accelerate dwelling standpoint, I don't have an issue with that. But again, even if it's a reduced fee, we're still charging a fee for something that was already paid. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I believe there are some additional questions. Marianne, do you have a question?
Well, I have a question.
I have one too.
Okay.
Okay, then I have a question for Jonathan. So Jonathan, were you opposed to the MSHCP fees to begin with? Or
absolutely, I was, Marianne, from the very beginning. Yes.
Okay, that's how I was trying to square away your
when we originally implemented the fee study, this was something I had multiple meetings with the company that we had brought in from Sacramento to do the Nexus study. And I disagreed it because I think retroactively charging fees is inappropriate on a dwelling. And that's why I asked the question. I knew Aaron would be prepared for it. What in the decimation of a structure. So that's not to say that if somebody's wanting to build an auxiliary dwelling, my concern is, again, every track map I've ever seen, every development I've ever seen, it's charged by the acre or by the lot. There's a per door cost.
Right.
And again, if you're not expanding the footprint or impacting the plan, how is it fair to charge that cost? Just
so expanding the footprint, doesn't that include adding on to the house?
No, I'm talking about the footprint of the lot itself. If you look at the way
Okay.
that these are calculated, it's based on per acres or by the size of the lot. And the impact of the take really has nothing to do with the footprint of the dwelling.
Okay, okay, I got it. I just wanted to understand but now that I realize that you were opposed in the beginning, then it makes sense to me. Okay, that's all I want to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we move on really quickly, so Jonathan, I just wanted, the board had already approved the fee as it is. So this part would be just really in opposition of like the basis of the MSHCP. Am I lost here?
I don't think it is. The problem that I have is once we really got into the weeds during the transition and everything else, this kind of came back full circle after speaking with people that were out there. And again, I'm not opposed to charging for an auxiliary dwelling. What I'm opposed to is that if I have an existing property such as mine that already had paid that fee and I'm not increasing my footprint of consumption that would impact the plan, I'm lost, and maybe somebody can explain this to me. And I've asked this before. If I add 700 feet onto my home on an existing lot that already had paid its fees, why would those fees be applicable again if I'm not impacting the plan?
Okay, yeah, so I guess I think it's just a little bit convoluted as the board had already approved that fee, but Aaron, can you provide a little bit of clarification?
Yep. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Director Ingram. This policy applies to those homes that are on properties that have not previously paid the MSHCP fee. So if there is a home that's been developed since 2004, presumably the MSHCP fee was paid on that lot. And you're correct, even if they were to add square footage to that home, with the change that's being adopted today, they would not be charged a fee. This was brought up to address those homes where the original construction of the house took place prior to that, and they had not triggered another discretionary permit on their property since the inception of the MSHCP.
Okay. Jonathan, does that help?
Yeah, and I understood that from the beginning when we actually looked at the Nexus study with respect to, and again, this comes back to that 750 feet. So if you're building an auxiliary dwelling, that's something that's separate, that's not attached to the existing dwelling, fine. Now we get into, you do a 750 square foot addition, we're charging that fee after 750 square feet, correct, Aaron? So again, how does the extra 200 or 300 over 7 or from 7 to 1,000 impact the plan in any way? It doesn't. That's where I sat and I went, I just don't understand it. And we can go back and look at the records to see how I expressed myself when this was brought up before. So again, my concern is I'm not a fan of retroactively charging anyone for anything if they had an existing dwelling, unless you could show a direct correlation to the impact of the plan. Now, if there's an impact to the plan, that's a different story. That should be a different topic. But again, whether it's a reduced fee or it's a full fee isn't relevant to me. It's still a retroactive fee. And I'm happy to hear that, that you're not going to charge on something that's already been paid, because the perception of that doesn't look good. That's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the dialogue. I know there's some additional questions, so I'll move on to that. I'm not sure in what order you all, but I'll just go from the top of the screen. Supervisor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess to say this is confusing would be probably an understatement. So, Jonathan, I'm trying to understand two things, and then I have some questions for Aaron. So, what you're saying is that you don't have a problem. Well, again, what Aaron's presenting is for properties that were developed prior to 2004 and paid no MSHCP fee. And you're saying that you don't have a problem with auxiliary dwelling units, but you do if they add on to the home. I'm not sure I understand the distinction there. Both are going to have people living in them. And I think the whole foundation of the MSHCP is that development, and therefore people who live in those developments, are impacting the MSHCP. That is the essence of what the impact is people living in homes. We're trying to preserve whatever it is that we can that goes into the plan. I'm not quite following that logic. And then a couple times you mentioned retroactively, and Aaron talked about retroactively going back to July 1st to lower the fee for those that may have paid more. But I think maybe what you're talking about is going back retroactively and asking people who'd never paid any fee but want to add on to pay a prorated amount of the fee for the new addition, which is after the MSHCP has been established. Aaron, did I get any or all or some, or how much of that did I get right?
I'll respond back if I may, Supervisor.
Oh, wait, no, I still have the floor, Jonathan. I want Aaron to answer my question, and then you can have at it.
That was pretty good, Supervisor. I think you got a very complicated issue and distilled it down into a few sentences.
All right, okay. Just want to make sure I understood it correctly.
Yep.
I yield back, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you.
The reason I responded, Supervisor, is because you directed the question to me. So one, the plan, in my view of the plan that I've studied now for 8 years and worked with intricately over the years as a developer, is that it's there to protect habitat and species and the impact of development, not the individuals that live in a structure. So when I refer to an auxiliary dwelling, that's something that may create additional vehicles and travel, but the property is calculated for what it's calculated for, predicated on the square footage that's been taken to offset that mitigation for species and habitat. With respect to your other questions, I mean, this is just how I feel in looking at it, and I disagree with retroactively imposing fees on a property that existed prior to the plan's inception. Unless it became a track map or a massive development, I just don't see where the impact is.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to move on to the questions or comments. I know that a few of you have your hand up, and I have you all on deck, but I believe Crystal Ruiz, I believe you're up next.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I really hadn't, I know it's a complicated issue, and I had thought of it, you know, at the time that we were kind of going over everything and figure things out, but Jonathan kind of raises a good point. And my question is, let's say a house prior to 2004 has been built. They now decide to build an enclosed porch. Is that going to be charged fee?
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I was waiting for you. I saw it in.
Okay. I'm going to go out here on a limb. My understanding here is that an enclosed porch is not something that triggers the MSHCP fee. Staff can jump in and correct me, but the implementation manual does provide guidance on what is considered eligible for the fee. And my recollection of that is that it's about usable square footage for the house. Steve, do you?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't,
All right, that's
I have to
all.
look at the manual. I don't have a ready answer for that.
Yeah. The idea here, the intent here is it's about square footage of the house. It's a living space.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think up next, Kevin.
Yeah, I understand where Jonathan's coming from, but unfortunately, the state of California has kind of stepped in on all of this. You can have a couple of types of ADUs. You can have a separate one, you can have one that's attached. And one of the things that finally people are kind of coming to Jesus on is that you have 2 and 3 families living in these homes. And that's the true impact of this. And I understand you can look at it from the square footage, but if somebody's adding living space, that will have an impact on this. So I get what Jonathan's talking about, that you're just adding to your home, but for the state of California, that's an ADU. You can do it attached or not attached. So I really have to concur with Supervisor Washington on this. I think that if somebody's going to add something above the 750, right, Aaron?
Correct.
Above 750, that's an impact whether it's attached or not. You know, we're trying to save habitat, and I totally understand developers wanting to talk about square footage, but you have a vast majority of dual families, triple families living in homes that nobody even knows they're there. You get no credit for in your arena numbers, and yet they are there. And it adds impact. I mean, what is it now? 3 families living in a dwelling produces something like 7 cars. I mean, there's all those different impacts that need to be taken care of. So I sort of commiserate with Supervisor Spiegel, Washington on this. I apologize, Karen. That's just my 2 cents. But again, I see where Jonathan's coming from. I understand the square footage issue, but there is no difference for the state of California between an attached ADU and a non-attached ADU. They both have a significant square footage. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Jeffries?
Yeah, just trying to follow the nexus of the expanded square footage and the justification for collection of a fee to mitigate something. And I should know this answer already, but so every single residential home in the western half of the county, in every city and in the county, whether it's the wood streets of downtown Riverside or Mission Grove of Riverside, if they were to add on to their home and have no direct impact to any criteria cell or anything, they're going to pay a fee under normal circumstances, just to contribute towards the overall plan to acquire land. Is that a fair assessment? There's no existing residential neighborhoods exempt from this in general terms. Is that correct?
Yes, correct, Supervisor.
So everybody's going to contribute going forward, except for if we do this carve out. So the discussion as to whether or not everybody should pay, whether or not they have a direct impact on a cell or a habitat area, that's a philosophical discussion about the role and relations of fees and mitigation, a little bit beyond whether or not we expanding the exemption for some home additions. I struggle with why somebody in downtown Riverside should be paying, and you could use downtown Temecula, downtown Hemet, you could use any one of them, should be paying, but I do understand the argument. We need more funding to acquire more land. And there's a second argument, because the state and federal government are terrible partners and not helping out at all. But that's another argument. So I've done a successful effort and talked myself in a circle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mary Ann?
Yes, I'm still going around Supervisor Jeffrey's circle, but let me just jump in and add to the circle. I'm concerned, and I brought this up our last discussion. I'm concerned about whether or not, applying these fees is going to be considered discouraging the auxiliary dwelling units. And you know, the new law says we can't do anything to discourage or to impede the construction or the addition of the auxiliary dwelling units.
Madam Chair, this new proposal that's before you today does not do anything to address how fees are charged on ADUs. What we're simply doing is saying that for the policy for how additions to homes will be treated, they'll be treated the same as an ADU. There's no change to ADUs here. And the ADU formula is actually set in state law. So we're not able to amend that even if we wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yeah, the way I look at it is this, you have homes that were built after the plan was made and they've all put in a certain amount, whether it was up to a certain point or before the fee increases. And yet you could have people that live in homes that were built in the 40s or anything else, and none of those have ever paid anything. Of course, there was no need for it back then. What I look at this as is kind of getting rid of almost like being grandfathered in. You never had to pay that, and it's a one-time thing. Hopefully, it's a one-time thing. And now once you go ahead and build whatever over 750 square foot, then you qualify as being a home that's built after 2004. And again, I'm not saying whether I agree. This is a huge philosophical argument that we go on what true impacts are and everything. But I'll tell you this: people that pay school fees that never have any kids, it's the same kind of thing. Look, I'm not saying it's one way's right or wrong, but that's the way I look at it. And certainly when Jonathan was saying that if somebody's already paid the fee and they're paying a fee again, that would be totally wrong. But I don't think that's the situation here.
Thank you, Supervisor Hewitt. Lisa Sobek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the discussion that we've had about the existing and pre-existing, our new existing homes. But the one thing we do need to take, there's another part to this that's really important, is that we get rid of that fee structure that somebody who's adding even just 200 square feet right now, they have to pay that full amount. And we do need to make that change. From my understanding, Aaron, I just want to make sure from my reading the report is that if I just want to clarify this, if an existing home has already paid the fee, they don't have to pay it again.
Correct.
Unless, okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. I see that we put up the example. Are we going to have some discussion on this example, or is this just for a visual?
No, Madam Chair, we just put that up because it was relevant to the question that Board Member Sobek was just asking. So
okay,
we're good. Thank you.
Are there any? I see Riverside. Hi, I'll turn it over, Patricia.
Hi, I was just going to make a motion when it's appropriate if the discussion is over to approve.
Well, you can make that motion right now if you'd like.
All right, I'll make that motion then.
Second, City of Banning.
And for clarification, is this motion to support staff's recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a first by second by, is that Banning that I heard? Yes, okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, then we will take it to roll call vote, please.
District 1?
District 1, aye.
District 2?
Aye.
District 3?
Aye.
District 5?
Yes.
Banning?
Yes.
Beaumont?
Yes.
Calamasa?
Yes.
Canyon Lake?
Aye.
Corona?
Yes.
Eastville? Eastville? Pettit,
Yes.
Ruba Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley, Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
No.
Norco,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
That was Jonathan Ingram for that no.
You knew it was.
Riverside,
Aye.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
I love you, Jonathan. Yes.
Wildemar, Wildemar,
And you were on this call.
I'm on.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. The item does pass.
All right. Well, thank you for great discussion, everybody, and an emphatic voting from all. We appreciate that. We are going to move to item number 9, which is our legislative update. And David, I believe, will be presenting to us today.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and board members. I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. I will provide you with an update on state and federal legislative activities. I'll begin with the state. With the conclusion of the 2021 legislative session on September 10th, the first year of the 2-year session, Governor Gavin Newsom will be considering just over 800 bills between now and October 10th. As you know, RCA state priority this year has been to advocate for increased state investment in habitat conservation and land acquisition in particular. Through the board adopted legislative platform, the legislative affairs team advocated for the proposed climate wildfire resiliency bond measures, AB 1500 and SB 45, to include $500 million in dedicated funding to the Wildlife Conservation Board with a $100 million carve out for California's HCPs. As a result of the $85 billion budget surplus, the legislature opted to table those bond measures in favor of an expansive one-time climate resiliency spending package, including a proposal to spend $3.7 billion over 3 years. However, only $440 million of this plan has been allocated for fiscal year 2021-22. And it's important to note that no budget may obligate the general fund spending of future fiscal years. Therefore, the $3.7 billion figure should be seen as advisory. As I've previously indicated to the board, the legislature followed an irregular budget cycle this year and set these and other broad spending levels in June and July, with details to be negotiated in the following months in the form of budget trailer bills. During that time, the legislative affairs team engaged our Western Riverside delegation and worked with the state HCP coalition to engage legislative leadership to advocate for $500 million in dedicated funding to the WCB. It wasn't until last week that the legislature unveiled details of their negotiated climate resiliency package, which included only $31 million increase for WCB's local assistance budget, bringing it to $96 million for the fiscal year 2021-22. While we appreciate this modest increase, the real issue will be to ensure that the legislature upholds its 3-year funding commitment with increased funding to WCB. On the federal side, the House is expected to take up the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act no later than September 27th, as well as pass a budget reconciliation resolution, which is being drafted in both the House and the Senate. The House and Senate will also have a debt limit increase to contend with, as well as a markup of Senate appropriations bills. All of these issues need to be resolved before the end of September, which represents the end of the federal fiscal year. Lastly, we continue to monitor progress on the effort to establish the Western Riverside County Wildlife Refuge. While language is no longer included in the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill, Representative Calvert's bill, HR 972, continues to move through the House committee process, and Senator Feinstein is drafting language for her own bill with our consultation. The bottom line is this: the legislative affairs team continues to engage in the legislative process to seek out resources that will support the MSHCP in Western Riverside County. This concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions or answer your questions.
Thank you, David. Do you have any questions or comments for our legislative update this afternoon? Silence is golden. That's going to take us to our item number 10, presentation, getting to know the MSHCP. I believe Tricia Campbell is on deck.
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson, board members, and the public. This month, we are going to do a crash course in one of RCA's central responsibilities in administering of the MSHCP, and that's the meet and confer, which, as you learned last time, is a step that may be needed once a joint project review is performed. Next slide, please. The meet and confer process is presented in section 6.6.2, subsection E.3 in volume 1 of the MSHCP document. Meet and confers can only occur for projects that are within cells. In other words, where potential reserve assembly may be needed. As we learned last month, projects that are proposed in cells go through the joint project review process. When the permittee with land use authority and the RCA disagree on whether a project is consistent with the plan, a meet and confer can occur. It occurs between the land use permittee and the RCA, and the project applicant is invited. It must occur within 30 calendar days of the RCA JPR findings of inconsistency. Next slide, please. This slide provides the steps of when a meet and confer can be triggered. So step 1, the permittee, for example, the city, the county, RCTC, finds the project consistent with the MSHCP. But then during the JPR review process, the RCA does not find the project to be consistent with the plan. That gets us to step 3, that within 30 calendar days of the RCA findings of inconsistency, the land use permittee and the RCA meet to find a resolution. The project applicant is invited to attend. Step 4, additional conditions of approval or other measures are discussed to reach agreement between the land use permittee and the RCA. If during this meet and confer resolution occurs, no further action is needed. But if no resolution occurs, then it goes to an elected official ad hoc committee for MSHCP consistency determination. Since inception of the MSHCP in 2004, the RCA has been involved with 9 meet and confers. So next time we will discuss the details of the ad hoc committee in the next installment of Getting to Know the MSHCP. Next slide, please. Any questions? Happy to take them.
Thank you, Tricia. Do we have any questions on meet and confer? All right. Well, hopefully, I know it's a long and we're a little bit over, so I'm going to try to quickly wrap us. I know that as we work through the plan and we continuously are presented with different opportunities, that we sometimes forget the little tidbits of what each process looks like. So we hope that this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, Tricia, I know, will be the best place to answer those. I don't think anybody knows those details better. All right, that's going to take us to item number 11 as we wrap. I'm going to just turn it over to our executive director for a quick update. Ann, are you ready? Double mute. She's not ready. Oh, she has no sound. Okay. All right. I will give her a minute. No? Okay, she can. Erin, did you want to step in and provide any further updates?
At this point, I guess we'll give an early preview that we are working with the chair on organizing a plan to implement the RCA Stakeholder Committee, which is something that is in our bylaws and was one of the objectives of this year. And so in the coming weeks, look forward to hearing more about what that will entail.
All right. Well, perfect. Erin's given my update, your update, Ann's update. And with that, are there any updates from the board? Good to go? Okay. All right.
Good job, Madam Chair.
I don't see anything. Thank you so much. Please be well. Our next meeting is October 4th. Currently, we are planned for virtual. We will let you know if anything changes, but right now we're on track for a virtual meeting. We're a little bit over, so happy Monday, everybody. Thank you for your participation and your decorum. Have a good afternoon.